This has been exciting, hasn't it? All this new material that we're coming across from the 7th century, from the very century when Islam supposedly began, when we've been told that this is that by the Islamic traditions, the narrative, the only narrative we've ever been given, that it all began in the 7th century in a place called Mecca with a man named Muhammad who was a Muslim who belonged to Islam, who was received this book called the Quran. And because of that narrative, the only one we've had, we've never really questioned it. You've been hearing, though, all these different theories that are coming out, and these theories that are all based on evidence from the 7th century that's confronting these traditions and this narrative that we have been told, confronting it head on. And they've been put together by people like Mel from Sneakers Corner, by Murad, who are a good friend from the Middle East, and soon you're going to hear some new material that's coming out from a guy named Joe. For me, this is exciting because they're doing the research and they're doing what a historian should do, and that is going and pulling the evidence that they see in front of them and trying to make sense of that evidence, looking at the evidence without any type of overlay of Islamic traditions from the 9th and 10th century. They're just seeing what do we know from the 7th century itself. So I want to go ahead and now move into a broader set of questions, and there are going to be 5 different questions over 5 weeks where we're going to be asking more specific questions. Some of them you've already heard, others we've intimated about, but I want to go into these 5 areas because they are close to my heart, and they have come about from my experience in the past. I was in London and I was studying under Dr. Gerald Hawting. They're at the School of Oriental and African Studies. And he started bringing in lots of material, all of it historical. He himself is a historian, and he said that he spent 20 years of his life trying to critique the Bible, trying to use redacted criticism, source criticism, these different types of what we call literary criticisms, basically under the umbrella of historical criticism to confront the Bible. And he said after 20 years, he finally just gave up. However, he knew all the languages, and so he said, why don't he just take his energies and apply it to the Quran and to the Islamic traditions? And he says, since then, it's just been enormous amount of new material that's come down the pike, and you'll see why once we get into this lecture. And so that was really where my antenna went up back in 1994 from Dr. Gerald Hawting. And I realized at that time that I needed to take this down to Speaker's Corner. And I started funneling his material, what I was getting in class, down at Speaker's Corner in London at Hyde Park. And it was absolutely exciting, energizing. The Muslims did not know what to do with this material. They had never heard this kind of material. And they did not like it. They were very angered by it. I did get beat up a few times. And I remembered even Gerald Hawting, when he heard what I was doing, he took me aside into his office and he says, do not ever, ever use this in a place like Speaker's Corner or in any public setting. This is not to be brought down to the public sphere. And I kind of looked at him incredulously and I said, if you're teaching us this material, we have all the right and the obligation to actually get it out and actually field test it for you. I'm field testing it. I'm getting it peer reviewed almost immediately, I was telling him. But he was fearful that if the Muslims got a hold of this material, that the repercussions would come back onto his shoulders. And I can understand that. That is one of the unique things about Islamic criticism. Anytime you do criticize Islam, you're going to get a reaction. And that's why polemics against Islam is very rare and not very popular. Certainly, it's not very popular amongst Muslims. Many of you have just seen what happened to my colleague, Hatun Tosh, just last Sunday, where she had to be protected by the police and had to be escorted from the corner. This just happened 4 days ago. And as they were escorting her, the Muslims were trying to get to her. They were throwing water on her. And then they were yelling, kill her, kill her, kill her, 6 times. You can see it on the video that's up on Fander Films. This just happened on Sunday in London at Hyde Park at Speaker's Corner. This is what happens when you criticize Islam, when you criticize specifically the Quran, and when you criticize Muhammad, which she did both on that day, and which she has been doing for years, because that's what we always do. Now, criticizing Muhammad by putting up those Charlie Hebdo covers is one thing, but going to the historical critique is much more damaging.
It is more academic, and therefore it's not always understood on the popular level. I will say that. So what I'm going to be doing in these next 5 lectures is looking at 5 areas of criticism. The first one we're going to start with is the Qibla. And this is Dan Gibson's research. It has been around. Dan Gibson is the one who, well, he's the best known for it. We're going to be looking at his material. We're going to be looking at certainly his research and the results of his research. We're going to be looking at some brand new material that's just come out. This is one of the great things about historical criticism. There is new material coming out every year, every month. In fact, some of it even every day. And that's particularly going to come to the fore when we get to the 5th lecture, which is on the quest. But let's start with the Qibla. The Qibla, will be looking at his material, and then we'll be moving over into the coins. The coins are brand new. This is new research that's just been coming out since January of this year. It's not new in that the coins are not new. They have always been around for 1400 years, because we're going to look at the 7th century coins. And we're going to see what they tell us, because they're telling us a completely different story than what the later 9th and 10th century traditions are telling us. And then we're going to move into this very exciting material that's been really all over the internet because of Hatuntash, almost entirely because of her, concerning the Qira'at and the Ahruf. She is the one that found the 26 different Qira'at Qur'ans, 26 different Qur'ans that were not the same, all Arabic. None of these were translations, and she found them in different countries there in the Middle East. These are Arabic Qur'ans, and she and I took them down to Speaker's Corner 4 years ago and held them up, and you know the rest of the story, what happened after that, especially what happened 3 months ago. And so we're going to unpack that and look at the newest research that's coming out on the Qira'at and the Ahruf, the different derivations of the Arabic Qur'ans that are in the world today. 30 official ones. There could be as many as 700 of these different Qur'ans. We'll move then into what I consider is my favorite subject, and that is the Quranic manuscripts. You notice these all start with Q. Well, okay, one starts with C. I don't know how to spell, but it sounds like a Q. And so we're going to go into the Qur'ans, the Quranic manuscripts. We're going to look at these manuscripts, and we're going to ask the question whether or not they are the same. We're going to be looking at a lot of Dr. Dan Brubaker's material. We're looking at his newest research, the 4,000 different changes that he has found in the earliest manuscripts. And then we're going to pinpoint looking at specific manuscripts that Muslims claim are 7th century, and we're going to debunk every one of those claims. And then we're going to end with the quest. I call it the quest because this is the quest for Islam in the 7th century. Where is this religion, Islam, in the 7th century? Can we find it? We're going to be looking at questions concerning Muhammad. Is he in the 7th century? Can we find him? Is he the same Muhammad, if he is there, as in the 9th and 10th century traditions? And this is material that I've been going through, if you've been looking on Fander Film, with Mel from Sneaker's Corner.
And Murad from the Middle East.
We'll also move into looking at some of the claims concerning whether or not he wrote letters or whether or not there was different types of communication with him. We're going to debunk those. We're going to look at the rock inscriptions. We're also going to be looking at the claims for Mecca in the 7th century. Mecca, this is the one that a lot of Muslims need to find because, and without Mecca, you pretty well don't have any Islam. You need to have Mecca. You need to have the Kaaba. You need to have the center of history. And we're going to debunk every one of those claims on Mecca. That's exciting. In fact, that could be a lecture in and of itself. And then we're going to be looking at also the name Islam and the name Muslim. And also we're going to see what we know about the Quran in the 7th century, dovetailing for what we had done the week earlier.
So listen, there's an awful lot that we're going to go through. It's taking me 5 weeks to actually teach these to hundreds of people that are around the world. And I've already said that I'm going to be taking what I've shared with them and put it up on the Fander Film. So you're going to benefit from these 5 lectures. So without any further ado, we'll go ahead and get into these lectures. We'll go through these 5 Qs. Starting with the Qibla, going to the coins, going to the Qira'at, moving on to the Qur'ans, and then ending with the quest. Now, I know that, okay, they are Qs, one sounds like a Q, but as far as I'm concerned, these are the 5 Q lectures. So sit back, enjoy, put your feet up, get your pen out, and then get your fingers tapping and put down and throw at us what you don't like or what you do like, or things that bother you, or things that get you excited. Do respond to what we're saying. As we say it all the time, this is the terrific thing about YouTube. You do have a chance to respond, and that's why we want you to do just that. Great. This is Jay, here in my studio once again.